Well, it's a time for children. If you guys will come down here, we'll talk a little bit. You can sit, and I will stand, and then I'll turn, because there's some things I want people to see. Very nice. So we always think of time as being the same, but how we have dealt with time has really changed. It used to be when everybody pretty much was a farmer. You got up when you saw the light, and you were done when you couldn't see what you were doing anymore. But with the coming of industrialization, which means big factories and stuff and people living in cities, we had common ways of telling time. So the reason they'd ring the bell at the church was so people would know it was time to come to church. And a lot of factories had a whistle or a tone that would blow in the morning, so people would know it was time to get to work. And then it would blow in the afternoon. And I remember when I was a child, there was still a factory that I could hear that had a 5 o'clock whistle in the town where I lived. But individuals didn't much need to tell time. We just told time to be in groups. But the coming of the railroad, and that's what I wanted to show you here. That's the reason I'm not wearing my robe today. With the coming of the railroad, it was important to know precisely what time it was, because trains shared the same track, and you didn't want them to run into each other. So they issued watches, and let's see how, you probably have better eyes than I have. Can you read where this was made? Can you read the little word up here at the top? Elgin. It was made in Elgin, Illinois. And that was a time when some of the most sophisticated engineering and building of machines was going on right here in Illinois. And this was an expensive thing, so that's why they put it on a chain, was you didn't want it to fall. And you also didn't want to mess it up and change the time willy-nilly and by mistake. So let me show you this. The face on this unscrews. So you can't just touch this by mistake. And then there's a little lever here. Oh, you can hear the train out the side of the church this morning. So once you move that lever, then you can change the time. But when you click it back, then you can't change the time anymore. And you put the face back on, and it's secure. So it turns out that people had pocket watches until World War I. So let's call that 1918, 1920. So that was 100 years ago. But what they found out was that if you stood up and you looked at your watch to see what time it was, and you put it back, you could get shot. So there was a company called Rolex, and they welded lugs on the side of a watch, these are called lugs, and put it on your wrist. So you didn't have to mess with all this hauling. You just look up and look down, and it was much quicker. Now most people just look at their cell phone. Although it still is handy to be able to look at something on your wrist. But the interesting thing is, though the way we tell time changes, that some things remain the same. And among those are the love of God, as we sang just at the beginning. O God, our help in ages past, our hope in years to come. Let us pray. Loving God, we thank you that you love us all the time. Thank you so much.